Hey guys, welcome back to All I See is W, where we talk about finance, stocks, and Bitcoin. Today, I wanted to cover a Bitcoin mining company, Marathon Digital, ticker MARA, and really just talk about what's going on with the overall Bitcoin market. We've been just seeing ups and downs in the month of December. The good news was that we were able to break through that psychological $100,000 with Bitcoin. In fact, just recently, Bitcoin, it went all the way up to about 108,000, and where we currently are within the last 2 days. The market reacted with Bitcoin price dropping down from like 108 down to about 97,000. However, about 2 weeks ago, early in December, we saw that the price of Bitcoin, it went to an all-time high of like 104,000. It dropped down to 92,000. And once that happened, it rushed all the way up to about the 108,000. So it would be interesting to see how low the price goes, or will Bitcoin start bouncing up? From my perspective, I think it's just a matter of the fluctuations with the Bitcoin markets. But the good news is that post the halving that took place in April, I'm thinking that Bitcoin will continue to have its bull rally, especially with the inauguration that's going to be happening in January with Donald Trump as an advocate for Bitcoin miners. And that's why I really believe that Marathon Digital uh, is going to have that bullish signals here, even though we saw just a big bloodbath in the last couple of weeks of trading. So we'll talk about the technicals analysis with Mara. Is now a good time to buy, sell, hold, or even dollar cost average down? So if you're new to this channel, I would really appreciate you smashing the like, subscribing for more related content where I can add more value and just continue to just dialogue and communicate with all of you. So let's begin, guys. First off, I would like to just talk about the technical analysis. So here we're looking at Mara. So today the share price, it reached $20. We know that just the overall markets today, I mean, it was just red. However, at the beginning of the day with trading, it was in the green zone, and that's because Bitcoin price was at 102,000, and all of a sudden, within like 30 minutes of trading, the Bitcoin price dropped down, and as a result, prices went down as well. And that was all resulted from the uncertainty that went on. I mean, just with the Federal Reserve just announcing that they are going to slowly reduce interest rate. And I think to me, that's really just a hiccup in the stock market. I think in about a week or two, it's going to go away. People aren't really going to care about all of that because ultimately, the economy, the US economy, I believe with Donald Trump, we're in a golden era. Things are going to look great here with a strong leadership. And with Bitcoin post halving, we're going to see Bitcoin run up to about 150 to 200,000 in 2025. That's my forecast. And whether that can happen in early January through March, we don't know the timing, but I do believe that it's going to happen based on the last two Bitcoin cycles. So, what does this mean from a share price standpoint as we look at Mara's price? So, as we look here, current price is at $20, and what I have here is the relative strength index, as you can see here, currently at like 50, 51. So fairly low in terms of the RSI. I like looking at the relative strength index, especially as an indicator to either buy a stock or just to monitor to see whether it's a good opportunity. So you see her back in like December of 2023, RSI was like at $82, and we saw that run up to close to $30. Just with the prior resistance in February of this year, it hovered up to about $34 with the relatively high RSI. So I definitely do think that the relative strength index currently at like 52, it may start running up in late December, January. And what does that mean? I think that we're going to start seeing that retest here, even though when you see it from a zoomed in perspective here, we see that leg down. But good news is we're seeing higher lows here, right? You see a low point here. You see a low point here, but you see a low point here. So it's trending in the right direction from a zoomed out month to month perspective, just in the last few quarters here in 2024. But I do think that we're going to start seeing that retest here. The end line here that I have drawn as the resistance would be sometime in January, and that's going to retest that $33 by January. And here I have the tier two resistance here at the end point of like April timeframe. And I do believe that's when Bitcoin will start running up around that time frame of April. Of course, we don't know what the timing is, but this is based on historical trends here, especially with Bitcoin being a limited supply. We can't engineer more Bitcoins out there. So, what's there? The remaining Bitcoin, 1.5 million Bitcoins left to mine, that's all going to be a finite number, and supply and demand will kick in. Price of Bitcoin will continue to go up. And as a result, with Mara's high throughput mining production currently at like 900 per month, along with the HODL numbers, we'll talk about that more from a fundamental perspective. But come that April timeframe here, I see that hitting that $50 test range here, which is what we saw, which was like half of the price range back in 2021. I'm factoring that in because of, the amount of available shares now. So $50 seems reasonable to me, which is currently like a 1.5x that is where we see currently. But that's just at a minimum price target. I think, just tier one, tier two here is what I'm drawing out. But if we see more bullish signals where it passes the threshold of like $33, and depending on the signals that we see heading into tier two, this may even catapult even further. But that's my price target here. Come January, as we see the price of Bitcoin go up, that's going to correlate with Mara retesting that $33 that we saw back in February. And then come April or earlier, we'll see that retest of $50. That's my perspective. Now, let's just take a look at some fundamentals, just updates that we're getting here from like X along with other updates. So here, Michael Saylor, he just remessaged us here regarding Mara raising 1.925 billion with a 0% interest on the convertible note back in November and December. We've heard about those two, you know, uh, 1 billion convertible notes just with the prior weeks, and using that money to buy up Bitcoin. So they bought 15,574 Bitcoin for the price of 1.53 billion at the price of 98,000 per Bitcoin, and repurchase 263 million in aggregate principal amount. So that has helped Mara be the leading miner right now with hodling 44,394 Bitcoin as of yesterday. So that just shows Mara being the number one Bitcoin miner hodler right now. So the miner that's in number two rank right now would be Riot, currently, close to about 18,000 Bitcoin. So Mara has separated, themselves from all the other smaller miners at the amount of 44 Bitcoin. And we know that MicroStrategy is like, just factoring in what MicroStrategy has, I mean, that's up in the hundreds of thousands. We're talking about like close to 450,000. So, in terms of what Mara has, that's about 10% of what MSTR has. But overall, Mara has created that disparity, leading number one miner hodler right now, as well as the mining production efficiency. We'll talk more about that, but I just wanted to share with you updates here. Just about 8 hours ago, Mara acquires 1.5 billion in Bitcoin to date with convertible notes. And it's beginning to look like a race as miners scramble to buy Bitcoin before its price keeps rallying. So there's lots of forecasts going on that Bitcoin's going to ramp up to 200,000 come 2025. So a lot of these Bitcoin miners. We heard about Hut 8 also buying Bitcoin today, Riot recently buying Bitcoin, Mara using the MSTR playbook. So I think with all of these convertible notes being used to increase the HODL, companies like Mara and other hodler companies will definitely benefit from that. And just overall with the financing with its treasury, the fact that Mara spent 1.53 billion dollars from the convertible notes from the last couple months here, acquiring 15,000 Bitcoin at the lower threshold of $100,000, that just shows how much they've increased their yield from a quarter to quarter perspective. And the company also repurchased around 263 million of its convertible notes due in 2026 and expects to use the remainder of the proceeds from the notes on more Bitcoin. So definitely using that MSTR playbook, and they currently hold about $4.45 billion dollars just worth of Bitcoin alone. Company enjoyed a yield of 22.5% on its holdings this quarter to date and 60.9 year to date. So definitely increasing that hodl here. We talked about that 1.925 billion dollars with the 0% interest, and securing those two big loans with very minimal interest, in fact no interest at all. I mean, the notes had a conversion price of $25.91 per share, which was a 42.5% premium over the average trading price before the offerings pricing. And on December 4th, the company said it had placed 850 million in notes due in 2031 with net proceeds of 835 million, with the conversion price of $34 or 40% over the share price on December 2nd. So, Mara began just buying Bitcoin weeks after weeks. And, back in November 22nd, they purchased 5,771 Bitcoin at the price of 95,000. So overall, just with all the market sentiment right now, we know Bitcoin's going to go up. That's why Mara bought Bitcoin, BlackRock bought Bitcoin to build on their ETFs, and Hut 8 just bought 100 million in Bitcoin. And Michael Saylor, he continues to buy Bitcoin like every Monday, and he's probably hitting the market for another 3 billion to buy more Bitcoin, especially with MSTR now getting into the QQQ Nasdaq index. So that's looking like lots of other miners are getting into that HODL approach because they know the value of this. And it's interesting to see how CleanSpark used an alternative approach, not to buy Bitcoin, but to bolster their overall hash rate, which was a different strategy. But it's interesting to see how much conviction Mara has with just Bitcoin price going up, and that's based on the actions that they're taking, buying more Bitcoin. And I think that's why Mara, from a fundamental standpoint, they're just going to stand out in the year 2025. Let's talk about some numbers here. Just looking at the overall production data that was announced about more than 2 weeks ago here, where Mara, they had such a successful month in November where they increased their hash rate by 15% up to 46.1 exahash at the time of this release. However, they just announced that they reached a milestone of 50 exahash per second. Whether they can get, up to like 55 exahash before the end of the year, it's possible. But most likely they'll be around like 53 exahash. They also won 54 blocks in November, an increase of 27% month over month, with a 37% increase with the year-to-date Bitcoin yield per share. So that just shows how strong Mara is. I mean, from a month to date, they mined 907 Bitcoins in November. No other miner has done that. The second miner that can compete right now is CleanSpark, where they mine 622 Bitcoins, but that's like 33% less of what Mara can do because of their hash rate. And I think that in December in about 2 weeks, they're going to be announcing possibly even like above 1,000 Bitcoins mined in the month of December. So there's going to be lots of good news that's going to be coming out. And for those reasons, I do think that Mara has that potential to skyrocket here. We may see that reverse pattern, even though it's been a bloodbath, but I definitely think that now is definitely the time. Think of it as Black Friday, dollar cost average down. If you don't even have shares of Mara, consider it. I'm not trying to pump the company up, but I do think from a value standpoint, where the current price is right now, of course, we cannot time how low it can go, whether it can go to 19 or 18. But I definitely do think that if you are like a long-term investor, now is a great opportunity to buy versus like buying it at like $30 and having it retest at $30. You're ahead of the game here, right? You're not drowning at a high cost average. So definitely opportunity to dollar cost average down if your current price is not at $20 or considering Mara. I mean, they're the number one miner company for a reason, and that explains why a share price is at $20. So there you have it. I hope that this video was valuable. I'd love to hear what your comments and questions are down below, and please make sure to subscribe to All I See Is W.